Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in today's video, we are going to be talking about generational differences and sort of just having fun with the weird, stupid trends that different generations have come up with. So I did this video before when I did Gen Z versus Millennials, and I said in that video, which I still stand by, that I didn't talk about Gen X or Boomers because Gen X is like, well, everybody forgets about Gen X, and then Boomers, it's like, I defined you as Tuscan Kitchen, which I still stand by that. That's basically your style. But you guys let me have it in the comment section. You're like, you gotta do this video again, and this time include the Gen Xers or the Boomers. So that's what we're doing today. We're gonna do different styles and trends in interior design that have happened through the generations and the stupid crap that we've put in our home along the way, generational edition. Let's get going, part two. But before I get to those generational differences, let me just take a minute and thank today's sponsor, Babbel. As some of you actually might know, I do live here in Canada, and while our first language is English, I've wanted to sharpen my knowledge of our second language, which is French. And although I may not actually use it kind of in my day-to-day life, French can come in handy when doing business in Canada or when traveling within Canada in places like Quebec. So when today's sponsor Babbel reached out to me, I knew I wanted to work with them to achieve my personal goal of learning French, something I have always wanted to do. I especially enjoy the sort of gamified parts of the lesson where you have to sort of match the word to the image. I find that really helpful as a visual learner. That super helps me. And this all makes sense because Babbel's lessons are designed by real language teachers, so they know how to keep you engaged and learning throughout the process. Babbel also focuses on teaching real world conversations about practical topics like travel, business, relationships, and more. And I love that because I mean, I'm not sure I'm ever gonna be really fluent, but I can definitely get better. So if you wanna try Babbel, which is one of the top language learning apps in the world, click on the link in my description to get 60% off on your subscription. Merci Babbel for sponsoring this video. Now let's compare the unfortunate interior design trends among the different generations, and there are plenty. Okay, so first let's start with Gen Z. Oh, Gen Z, I love you. Let's talk about the weird stuff that you do in your home because this is the thing, right? So I wanna make this video. It's like, we see all this crappy, ugly things that people do, especially young people, and young people are allowed to be kind of stupid and do crazy stuff. And it's also to point out that we did stupid things too when we were that age. And that's just like, we all get sucked into these trends, even though we like to think we don't. We all want to belong, and so we all end up getting sucked in. So Gen Z, I'm gonna have to say, the Gen Z version of stupid decor things that they do in their home, specifically storage. And it's gotta be displaying records that probably you don't actually use. So records as decor is very interesting to me that the Gen Z is coming up with this, because it's almost like we've come full circle. We went from physical media and we decided that's stupid, let's go with streaming. And then we were like, wait a minute, actually streaming's bad. And it's almost like counterculture. There's an interesting trend of, I think, wanting to stand out, I think, as a Gen Z, which is really interesting because previous generations always wanted to fit in. You always wanted to go with the crowd, do what everybody else was doing. But I think in the age of growing up with social media, I think I have a theory that like Gen Z basically just always wants to stand out because they live in a world where they have access to what their peers are doing all the time. So what's cool is not fitting in, what's cool is standing out. And so if everybody else is on Spotify, guess what you need to do? You need to display your records as home decor. And this happens all the time. But again, it's also kind of silly because by being counterculture, you're actually sucking into a trend. So you can't win. You really can't win. So displaying records as decor feels very Gen Z. And I don't necessarily completely hate this trend. I don't think it's the worst on this list by any stretch, but I think it is interesting because I don't know necessarily if they're using it. And I think that displaying functional items as decor can make sense as long as you do it in a really clever sort of way. It's really helpful if you actually also use those things that you're displaying. So books, for example, like a nice, beautiful bookshelf is great, assuming that you also read books. If you're buying books that are a certain color, we'll get to millennials that do this in a second. If you're buying books that are a certain color just because they look good, I don't think that makes sense. I've got a few books back here. I'm kind of accused of this too because it's like, do I read these all the time? Yeah, sometimes I do, okay? I actually do. So if you actually use these items, Gen Z, then you go for it. If you're actually going there and you're buying the records, I don't know where you're buying them from. I couldn't tell you where to buy a record right now, honestly, if I tried. But if you're using them, then good for you. But this definitely feels like the display method of choice for the Gen Zer. Okay, and then the millennial version of this is gotta be Colorblock Bookshelves. This is a trend I can't get behind. Millennials, we need to stop doing this. This was like mid 2010s where people were color coordinating their bookshelves based on the color. So we've got the purple books, we got the Roy G. Biv, the red, the green, the yellow, we've got the whole Roy G. Biv right there. This is impractical and therefore really gets me for this reason, because what are you gonna do? Like, are you planning on putting all the like Harry Potters in color coordinated order, or are you just gonna put them in 1 through 7 like a real live human as J.K. Rowling expected it to be? I don't like this. Like, is Philosopher's Stone in the purple section and Half-Blood Prince is in the green section? Like, I'm not okay with this. It's frustrating. And I just think you should group by subject, or don't group at all, or group, of course, based on if they're a series, but this is something that we millennials did. And it was that aesthetic, because we're the Instagram generation. If they're the TikTokers, we're the Instagram. It's all about the aesthetics. And it just doesn't make sense. The other one, by the way, honorable mention, is turning the books the other way. So the pages go out so that everything's beige. Not everything has to be beige, and you say that as I have a beige background. You're like, girl, yes, if you like beige, go for it, but like, it doesn't all have to be beige, you know what I mean? Just let books be books. That's kind of really my message here, and just let them do their thing. But this was the storage stupid trend that we bought into. Okay, Gen X, hello, wake up, hello, I love you. Hello, Gen X, welcome to the conversation. Yours has to be the CD tower rack. Oh, the CD tower rack. Like, again, is this a trend? I don't know, it's just because we all had them that I'm gonna call it a trend, or at least the Gen Xers did. Because for me, like, the Gen Zs are kind of like my nieces and nephews, like and then I'm a millennial, and then my older siblings are Gen Xers, my parents are boomers. So like, I just think of like my sister's place and whatever, it was just all about the physical media. And look, young people love media, I get that, and it always has been true. While we've embraced streaming, the Gen Zers are on the records because they're back in the 20s. You know, the Gen Xers, you are all about the CD, and you're all about the tapes, and you're all about the DVD. But I think it really overwhelmed the space, if I'm gonna be quite honest. If you're still doing this, Gen Xers, it's time to take a sober second thought, because there is just, it was everywhere. It was, I have to call it decor, because it was just everywhere in your space. It was overwhelming. These tower racks, they were just insane. And I get it. You know, we love a good CD. We loved it. Jagged Little Pill, my favorite album of all time. I'm not gonna lie to you. But did we need to display all this? That's the question. I think we could have tucked it away, but we didn't. It was these giant monster CD tower racks, and you guys loved them, and bless you for it. Okay, and then the storage medium of choice, or kind of, really, it's the boomers. Here we go. We're gonna have to talk about the giant TV media console, like the huge entertainment centers. Huge. I said this in a previous video. I don't know where these all went, and I assume people took a chainsaw to them, because I don't know how you get them out of the house. These are so huge, I would struggle to get them through a doorway. I'm not sure they would actually fit. These things were so massive, and they made sense at the time. And this is kind of also the point of the video. It's not that everybody's stupid, even though we kind of are, right? We all get sucked into these dumb things, but also technology, and just like, it's really that window of what was popular at the time, regardless of your sort of generation. And at the time, technology was such that people had the giant TVs, but they were the tube TVs, they were the square TVs. But I think that these monstrosities were so huge, it became such a statement piece. Now, I personally believe that these evolved into the built-in shelving that we have seen in the 2010s and even into now. Back then, I mean, you guys loved this. The boomers loved this, because they could afford to have 6 children. So they obviously, which nobody can now. Everyone's like got plants or maybe a dog, maybe 1 child, but even that feels like, are you sure? Can you afford that? Well, before it was like, you could have 4 or 5 children on 1 salary apparently and make it work. It was the boomers. Gosh, they had it right, didn't they? Anyway, you had these giant entertainment centers because you got all the children, and you know, it was overwhelming, and it completely took over a space, and you know, that worked for you. And it was always in yellow oak because that was the only material really available. There was a shortage of everything else. I don't know why. It's either that or crappy IKEA plywood or whatever, MDF with a veneer. But like, it was just all about that yellow oak. And you know, again, we love you for it, but that was the boomer style for sure. Okay, next up, let's talk about art. So the Gen Z art has got to be like the 3D masks and like 3D colorful prints and art gallery walls. So they saw the gallery, we're gonna get to the millennials in a second, and the Gen Zs love color. They love maximalism, and they love weird. They love weird because, again, I believe they're just trying to stand out, which I get it. Fine. But they all have these like weird monster masks. I think this is made famous by that TikToker, what's her name? Like TT Boop Boop or something, Ty Boop Boop, something, I don't know what her name is, but you look it up. Gen Zs, you can find her. I'm sure she's lovely, but she's got the masks and she loves a maximalist space, and that's great for her. And these are everywhere, and they're really funny to me. So I think Gen Zs are not content with a like regular old stuffy gallery wall. They need to make it weird and kooky and fun. And so they tend to just like kind of, I think, use 3-dimensional objects incorporating into it, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it's always done in these really bright, vibrant, maximalist sort of colors. This is the rejection of the Millennial Scandi, and they're like, you know what, we're looking for big, bold color, and we'll see if these date. We'll see. I mean, I have my thoughts. I could be wrong. It's been known to happen. It's not often. It hasn't happened recently, but it could be true. I could be wrong. Okay, Millennial version. Millennial version has to be the Society 6 mid-century modern geometric prints, usually in a boho style, right? It's gotta be like tan, beige, caramel, oatmeal, cream. Don't get me wrong, I love that palette. I really do. But like, you know what I mean? Millennials, like we can change this up a little bit. Yeah, this is the print. It's always in these sort of different colors, but not different. Like really just right there in that color wheel, that little central that little orangey, beigey creamy pie that, ooh, that sounds gross, but you know what I mean? Like that little section, that pie-shaped section of the color wheel. Oh, I'm never gonna live that down. That section for Millennials, we just really love that in these art prints, and they were boho, they were mid-century, and they just fit our vibe, and we just love them. And they were always from Society 6, maybe Etsy if you wanted to be like, ooh, I'm gonna support a small business. But for the most part, they were from Society 6. And listen, I'm not saying they're completely tragic. I'm not saying that they necessarily are. They're just completely overdone, and they were a trend that was huge. We all bought into it. I didn't have one personally, but I know people that have, that will remain nameless. And you know what? They had it and they loved it, and good for them. Still rocking it. Millennials, we're still rocking it, and that works for you guys. So that's that. Okay, Gen X. I really struggle with this one for you guys because my first instinct was to say like band posters because I just feel like that's what you guys love. But here's the thing. This is a good opportunity for me to say, Gen X, okay, here you are. The problem, the challenge it is to find and define sometimes Gen X style is the boomers were such a huge generation and the Gen X was such a comparatively much smaller generation that because, you know, like, well, the war, it all comes back to the war, let's be honest. But like the boomers were so huge and everybody came back from the war and got busy. And then it was a bit of a glut with the Gen Xers. We had a bunch here and then we didn't have very many Gen Xers. And the problem there is the boomers have really defined every step of the way as they've been older. Like they've kind of defined trends every step of the way. And so for the Gen Xers, you've always been in the shadow of this monster generation that just monopolized the whole conversation. So what is Gen X style? Well, you know, if Gen Xers are kind of 1965 to like 1980, 81, that's your generation there. So if you're like born in the 70s, that means that your style when you were in your 20s and 30s was in like the 90s and 2000s, but so much of 90s style is boomer style, you know what I mean? And so it's really kind of harder to define yours necessarily, but I would say like a Nirvana poster, it's teen angst core, if you will. Like people add core to everything now and call it a design style. So we're gonna say Nirvana core maybe is yours. I also gonna give an honorable mention to Ann Geddes posters. I don't know if this is a boomer thing or a Gen Xer thing, but I have a feeling some of you Gen Xers bought some, okay? So you can calm down. What was that? Can we take a minute and talk about like that trend, that flew by and we never really got to debrief it. But what was with taking children and dressing them up like babies and dressing them up as sunflowers and calling that decor? It happened. We don't talk about it enough because I don't think we've really learned from our mistakes because we haven't talked about it. It happened. Gen Xers are gonna be like, that was a boomer thing. We didn't do that. Some of you did, okay? Some of you did because those, and Geddes sold some prints, okay? So don't come at me with that one. Okay, and what is the boomer version of stupid art that we put on our wall? I'm gonna have to give it to the Thomas Kinkade art. Just this style. And I'm pretty sure when I was 11, I bought one of these or something similar for my mom. Boomers just loved a serene painted landscape photo. Like it's gonna always have a little farm nestled in the woods, or it's gonna have like a cute little boat on a lake, mountains in the background, right? Like boomers loved that style. It's a quintessential boomer thing. If you walk into a boomer's house, listen, in 1990, 2024, it does not matter. They have got a Thomas Kinkade or something like it sitting right there on the wall. It's always in the living room, probably above a mantle, and boomers just love this one. And, you know, it's not my style, but I get why boomers love it. And if you love it, then I'm happy for you. Let's just say that. Okay, next up, let's talk sofas. Okay, I could do like 7 of these videos. If you like them, let me know. Let's talk about sofas. Okay, so Gen Z, your favorite sofa has got to be the knockoff Togo sofa. I say knockoff because we all know you can't afford the real Togo sofa from like back in the day. Listen, it's probably not a vintage Togo. It's probably not, okay? Unless you're a celebrity Gen Zer, in which case good for you. But like, this has to be the quintessential epitome of Gen Z sofas. It's woefully impractical for anybody above the age of 28. So it fits perfectly. So good luck with in a few years on these guys. They look like a Sharpei dog, but that seems to be fine with you guys. You don't seem to mind. It's just a really sort of impractical sofa, but it's great for lounging. It's basically a beanbag chair, which again, we love to be, that should be I didn't put that down for the Gen X one, but that should definitely be kind of the Gen X beanbag chair should be your version. This was a very popular, or this is still a very popular sofa. People love the Togo. I'm not a big fan, but I don't love a lot of the kooky couches that Gen Z seems to love. They also love the knockoff Bellini. Basically take any sofa from the 70s, make a knockoff version of it, Gen Zs love it. Especially if it's in like a boucle or some sort of weird fabric. They seem to just go for that 9 times out of 10. So Gen Zers, that's what they love. Okay, and then Millennial couch. We are ready for it. It has got to be the jewel toned emerald green West Elm sofa. The sofa that everybody loved. Here's why I think Millennials loved it. First of all, it was mid-century modern, which we all know is one of the favorite styles that the Millennials love. It was also more expensive. And West Elm is interesting, right? Because it's more expensive than IKEA. So it's like, oh, I'm above IKEA now. So as the Millennials kind of got into their 20s and into their 30s, they were like, we're gonna upgrade from IKEA. Not everything has to be IKEA, although as we all know on this channel, I love an IKEA find. But they decided, okay, we need to upgrade a little bit. Ooh, turns out a lot of these places are super expensive, or they make furniture that is way too big for my space. I need something that is small, relatively affordable, and is also in my style. Enter the West Elm couch. Now, it also needed to be in a super vibrant color. It could be in blue, it could be in a sapphire, but 9 times out of 10 is it gonna have to be in an emerald. This sofa, super popular. There has been memes about it. There has been articles about it that I have read on this sofa. I don't know if it's a great sofa. I never had it myself. I was never a big fan of the jewel tone couches, but that was a huge trend. People loved it. It fit in glam spaces, mid-century spaces. It was not Scandi, but that's okay because it was basically the first two. And we went crazy for it, didn't we, Millennials? But I think it's time to move on from it a little bit. Okay, Gen X, I'm gonna give you 2 because I didn't give you a video last time, so I'm gonna give you 2. First of all, it's gotta be brown microfiber futons. It's gotta be microfiber and it's gotta be it doesn't have to be. There was a lot of ugly futons back then in any fabric, but it definitely has to be a futon. And that is because, you know, it was cheap, it worked, and you know, it did the job, and sort of, I don't know, what can I say about a futon? Like, I don't have anything to say about a futon because it's the most blah piece of furniture ever, but the Gen Xers love it. And the second piece has to be the pleather couch, the shiny pleather couch. It was always pleather, and by that I mean not real leather, and it always peeled, and it was that big squishy material, and it just feels so Gen X. I feel like my sisters had the pleather couch. My brother, I think, probably had a pleather couch. I don't know, was it because the weed smell wouldn't get into the fabric? Is that why you guys loved it so much? I don't know. Was it because it's cheap? Yes, I think that has a lot to do with it. I really, really do. Was it because you found it on the side of the road and threw it in the back of your mom's station wagon? Yeah, these are all great theories for why this was a popular couch, but it was everywhere and quintessentially Gen X in my opinion. Okay, and then boomers. Yours has to be the rolled armed floral couch. Boomers loved a floral. They really did. So, you know, I just think this is Diane Keaton. She's sitting on the couch. We're watching, you know, it's Father of the Bride, watching one of her movies, and she is like so boomer, but like affluent boomer, you know what I mean? This was just super, super popular. I feel like florals were huge, pastel florals. I'm also gonna give it to a pastel floral cushion was very popular. Pastel everything was just super, super huge. Again though, this feels very 90s to me. This feels like boomers coming into their own. And by that point, I mean, if they were born between 1945 and 1964, you guys are definitely getting into your 90s, so not 90s year old, but the 90s period of time. And that's really gonna be my reference point here. But I do think that this was very, very popular for the boomers at that time. Before that, well, I don't really know what you guys did, but it probably wasn't great. But anyway, you definitely loved the rolled arm sofa. Very traditional, very not mid-century modern, which is probably what your parents really enjoyed with, you know, because that generation, I mean, they were the 50s and 60s. They grew up in the 50s and 60s. For them, that was their sort of prime years. And well, they had a very different sense of style than you guys did for sure. So that definitely feels very boomer to me. So that's it for me, you guys. I hope you really enjoyed this video. I'm gonna leave it right there. Again, if you want me to do another one video, let me know. I'll do another one. I've got like literally content for days on this because the generations, God, we all do stupid things. But you know, it's so interesting because they're just a product of our time. And I think when people say like, I don't like trends, I don't buy into trends. Yeah, you do. You do because you bought into these ones. You know what I mean? You probably saw yourself, no matter where you were, you saw yourself in this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. So I'll see you all in the next video. I'm gonna link, by the way, to the part 1 if you missed that one. So I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.